Hello, everyone. Welcome to episode 10 of Mental Spelunking. In this episode, we start off by talking about the movie The Family Man and how serendipity is so important in everybody's life. Then we talk about the importance of having shared values in a relationship and how the journey to self love and acceptance is so important. We then discuss parenting on a multitude of different levels, including the impact that technology has on children, the difference between control and partnership, how to set clear boundaries, and the natural consequences of parenting. We really hope that you guys enjoy this episode, and let's get into it right now.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to episode 10. 10. That's a good number. We're getting into the double digits, which is really exciting. Um, I'm actually having a kid soon, so which is really exciting. I don't think anybody of the viewers know that. So I'm having a kid soon, and it's been a long process for my wife and I, which has been awesome. And not awesome the length of it, but awesome that it's coming to fruition. And yeah, it's interesting. There's obviously points in it which you're like, I don't know what's going to happen. And now that my wife and I are going to become parents, it's amazing the amount of stuff you get to work on in the lead up to it all. Because you know, I was talking to a friend of mine about it, about the spiritual work that I do, and I'm like, man, if I completely suck at parenting, then what the hell was all this for? What was all the trials and tribulations and pain and suffering and silent retreats and feeling like I'm going to die all the time? What the hell was it for if I end up being just a terrible parent? So at least there's kind of like that razor above my head being like, you better fucking do a good job. You better do your best. Like, you don't get a choice. Even if your best is kind of crappy that day, you still got to absolutely try to do your best. So it's a nice little kind of thing to kind of push me along. Um, and as you and I both know, the work never really ends. It's
No.
one of those never ending, it's like the never ending story. It's the never ending journey. It's like even when you die, you're probably still doing work. So, but anyways, how are you doing?
Well, I'm okay, but I have a question. How are you feeling? Because it's coming so close now.
Yeah. So how do I feel?
Yeah.
I am elated. I think that's the only way I can feel. I'm
Mm.
elated. Um, and this is coming from somebody that, call it 10 years ago. I didn't know how I felt about having kids, but now I'm like super gung ho. I'm very excited, and I'm really excited to meet this new little person that's going to come into my life. I'm really excited to share all the things that my wife and I do generally, which I actually think will enhance for the kid. Whether it's the Christmas stuff, like my wife loves Christmas, and we we put tons of stuff up outside. We have lights, we have little like reindeer, we have
Mm.
little boxes, garlands, these huge like 6 foot nutcrackers, and then inside
Whoa.
we have these like little Charles Dickens villages with fake snow and all of that. And then we have my grandpa actually had these really cool like three wise men. They're like on camels. They're like
Hmm.
handmade, super cool. We have like a little nativity set. We usually have garlands everywhere. We have a tree. Um, to my wife's chagrin, I don't know if she's gonna like the fact that I think the little kid will most likely want multicolored lights. My wife likes the show home white lights that make it look like you're trying to sell your house. I feel like the kid's gonna want, like Disney characters
Yeah.
and stuff like that on a tree. So, she might have to have an adult tree and then we can have a kid tree just to kind of placate that. But even then, like, we've talked about this offline, but my wife and I, mostly my wife, she loves Halloween and makes videos. And I just think that there's so many things that we do. Like, we love being in nature, we love hiking. We don't really watch a whole lot of TV. Um, so we're just really excited to have the kid. I'm really excited to have the kid. And I think all the spiritual work that I've been doing and the shamanism and the stuff that you and I do, and I think it's all only going to enhance what what we do. And I also think the thing about like me shifting what I'm doing with my work, I also think that's going to be a real nice positive impact
Mm.
on the kid. Just showing that you can go into the world and uh, with your heart open and work. You can find people who want to do that. Um, that's also to say, if my kid's like, I want to go and take over the world, it's like, fuck, okay, whatever. I can't. I gotta accept you for you. So here's what it is.
Oh, it's beautiful. I'm so excited for you and
Oh, I'm
Katie.
super
Like, it's
stoked.
just,
I think I
yeah.
think I think the kid might have to make a little guest appearance a couple times.
Yeah.
I think the kid might have to make a guest
Yeah,
appearance. Um, so that's how I'm doing. But how are you doing? How's everything going? How's everything going in your world? You're in California now.
I
It's sunny
am.
all the
I
time.
know. It's not even sunny today, and look how good the light is.
It's amazing.
I know.
You don't have to worry about like the shit you have to worry about in Michigan. You get a. I had a friend of mine that lived in Menlo Park, and I was talking to him like, "What are you gonna do today?" And he's like, "I don't know. I might just sit inside and watch Netflix all day." I'm like, "Dude, it is 25 degrees Celsius outside. Like, it's beautiful where you are." He's like, "It's 25 degrees Celsius every day, Liam. I can take a day off and not go outside." That's not how we operate in Calgary. It's like, if it's nice out, you go. If it's not nice out, you go anyways. But you're just like, if it's
Exactly.
nice out, it's a bonus where you don't have to have 3 layers or 4 layers or 5 layers.
Yeah, I have to be outside every day. I felt like that when I lived here before. It just feels like growing up in Connecticut, which is not Calgary, but is similarly cold and snowy in the winter. Like, how could I not go outside? It's beautiful. So, yeah, it's a little foggy today. It's that kind of fog where if you go outside, your eyelashes get a little bit of dew
Yeah,
on them.
I
I
know.
love
It's
that
so nice.
fog.
When
It's the
Katie lived
nicest.
or she lived in the marina, and it
Hmm.
was you get outside and you kind of get like a little bit of a veil on your face of
Yeah.
mist, and but it like it I don't know, I always find mist like smells really good and tastes
Yes.
good. It's probably filled with pollutants because you live in Los Angeles, but it still tastes good. It's almost like, don't worry about all the like fossil fuels and this shit, but it's
Yeah.
gonna taste good. We're gonna make you feel good.
Yeah, I don't think about that. I just feel like I'm walking through magical little forests everywhere I go because it's so pretty. Yeah.
Katie used to live when she lived in the marina. She was like right next
Mhm.
to like Golden Gate Park and all that.
Oh, yeah.
With all the trees and everything,
Yeah.
the
Beautiful.
mist. You're like, fuck, this is amazing. Anyways,
It's so beautiful. Yeah, so that's great. The strangest, well, maybe not the strangest, but a strange thing happened this morning
okay.
that I have to tell you about. So last night I fell asleep on the couch.
Again,
Yeah, well, I got home really late. I was having dinner with this amazing woman in the South Bay, and I got home at maybe 11:30, and it's Hanukkah, so I wanted to light the candles, and I bought I bought the like really long lasting candles because I think they're so pretty. But when you light a really long lasting candle at 11:30, you have to stay up for a really long time while it burns. So I'm on the couch like trying to watch the menorah so that I don't set fire to the apartment. And at some point I fall asleep before the candles burn out, but they're really close to being out. So there's no fire. This is not a fire story. I know it could have gone a fire story way, but it's not. I really got so, I mean, they were just barely, and I was like, okay. So I fell asleep and I wake up, or I'm woken up at, it turns out 4 o'clock to this very loud bang. So my first thought was, oh, earthquake, but nothing else is moving. I was okay. And there was a box, a pretty heavy box that had contained one of those storage shelving units that they sell at Home Depot that people usually put in their garages. So those metal shelving storage things. I had bought it for Michigan for extra storage, but there's no space for it here. So it's just sitting in a box while I figure out how to sell it. As an aside, not being on Facebook, I've learned is really challenging for selling things because people don't use Craigslist anymore. So I've got to figure out how to get rid of this. Anyway, it's sitting over here and has been sitting here for at least a month, standing up against the wall. And right in front of it, because it's been standing there, no problem, right in front of it was some artwork from one of our students. And this student had drawn, at my request, ghosts and entities that she was seeing. So, right before I left for Michigan, I had this really profound conversation with one of our students. She came up to me and she said, "Hey, I think I'm psychic. I see ghosts," which was really out of the blue. I'd known her for almost 2.5 years at that point. And I knew she had abilities, but we don't talk about that explicitly in our class. So this is the last week or so. So everything is extraordinarily chaotic. And she's wanting to have this conversation about what she sees. And I would like to have it with her too, but everything is like going haywire. So I asked her to draw what she was seeing. So that's what this picture is. And then she let me keep it, which was really very kind of her. So this is what's in front of this box. So this box falls like this, which should have been on top of the picture, right? Except when I wake up, the picture is laying on top of the box. Yeah.
Like out of the box.
Like on top of, like it's literally just sitting as if somebody had moved the picture out of the way, the box fell, and then put the picture on top of the box.
That's cool.
Right?
That's
So
great.
I know, I woke up and I was like, wait, what? And then I'm trying to understand in any way in a material sense how this could have happened, but I'm kind of half asleep. Finally, I just give up and I'm like, all right, well, this happened, I guess, and I'm gonna go to bed. So I went to bed and I woke up in the morning thinking, who knows, maybe I'd made it up because it was
Yeah.
dark and I was tired. And I'm looking at it right now. No, it's not like it's on the edge and it's not like it flipped on top. It's just placed on top, middle of the box, as if the box fell and the picture just went right through the box and came on top. So, yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That is a awesome. That's an awesome story.
Yeah. I had to tell you.
No,
Uh,
it was
um,
funny. I was talking to I went for dinner last night with our mutual friend John,
mm,
and it was funny. He was talking to me. He was like, "Yeah, so Allison and I are working on this thing." And I was like, "Oh, that's cool." And he's like, "Liam, it's very interesting." I said, "Okay, why is it interesting?" He's like, "Well, because I'm working on the same thing in my shamanism stuff, but then she's telling me about it." And I'm like, "Yeah," I'm like, "That's cool." And he's like, "No, it's like, it's so amazing." He's like, "It's so cool how they're all this stuff is kind of somewhat intertwined." Like, I think that's the one thing that I want to kind of hammer home to a lot of people. I like, look, I'll be honest, right? That there's only so many different ways that you and I can cut things and talk about spirituality and talk about as many movies as we want and whatnot. But the the central point is it all kind of comes back to the same thing. It just depends on how you want to express it.
mhm.
So I'll give you like a cool example of this. Okay, have you ever seen the movie The Family Man?
Oh, I have seen that movie. I think, is it Nicolas Cage?
Yeah,
Woohoo!
it's like Nicolas
Okay.
Cage and Tia Leone.
Yeah, I've seen this.
Okay, so and Nicholas, it's really funny because this movie reminds me of my dad a little bit,
Mm. I don't
especially.
remember it at all, Liam, but I remember I saw it.
That's okay. I'm going to tell
Okay.
you a bit. This is what I
Wonderful.
did. And so the premise of the movie, it's like it's kind of similar a little bit to A Christmas Carol, not exactly though. Okay, and
Okay.
so the premise is that Nicolas Cage is this really successful finance guy, and he was dating Tia Leone in university. And this character played by Don Cheadle kind of shows up, and it's like that all this snow comes down. All this snow comes down. And what happens is that the character that Don Cheadle plays allows Nicolas Cage to see what could have happened if he
Mhm.
didn't, if he had come back from London and stayed together with Tia Leone after university. Now there's two scenes in that movie, um, or three scenes in that movie where uh, like it's really nice. So there's this one scene where it's near the end of the movie. He's outside and he's playing with his kid, and they're running around, and he falls, and the kid gets on top of him and says, "I knew you'd come back." Like
Oh,
it's a really good scene because it shows that whatever you want to talk about, the spirit or whatever it is, was like, hey, this is probably where you're supposed to be, not what you're doing. Or you could be here, let's just say, right? And so that's one, right? And Nicolas Cage kind of looks at her funny, like, but then he's like in his garage, and the girl shows up and starts ringing the bell again, and he's like, "Why are you doing that?" But there's a thing inside him that knows. He's like, "Oh no, I'm gonna have to go back."
mm.
Then he has to go buy some salt or whatever it is, and he goes and buys the salt. Don Cheadle's there, and he like buys the salt, and he looks at Don Cheadle's like, "You're not taking me back." He's like, "There's the thing. This was just supposed to be a view. This isn't what you're gonna do." And he's like, "No, screw that." He's like, "I'm not going back." And he goes and walks his dog, and then all the snow starts coming, and he's like, "No, I'm going to go back." And he tries to stay up, and he's like, "I'm not." And he looks at Tia Leone and he says, "You got to remember me. You got to remember me for like what this was." She's like, "Are you okay? Are you gonna die?" And he's like, "No, you got to remember me. You got to promise you're gonna remember me." Anyways, he's like sitting in this chair, and he like falls asleep and wakes up, and he's like, "Fuck, I'm back in this other life." And the funny thing about that life is he's like super successful, single, like only cares about making money, doesn't think about anything else. And then he spends a good chunk of the rest of the movie going to like the house he lived in. He like knocks on this door, and this guy's like, "Who are you looking for?" Is it just Kay live here? He's like, "No." And he's like, "Oh fuck." He's like, "Are you okay?" He's like, "No, I'm not okay." And there's this such a sad scene where he goes into work, and and like work's falling apart. This deal they're working on is falling apart, and then he looks at them so sullen, like just so depressed, and he's like, "Here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna go fly to Aspen. I'm gonna go talk to our client. I'm gonna tell the client that what you're thinking of doing is the devil, and that you need to do it with this company, the company that we're representing, so we can get paid. Then what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go ski. And then I'm going to realize that I'm alone, and that's what I'm going to be for the rest of my life, or something like that." And he just like knows he's just going to be alone. So then, anyways, he like gets in his like limo. He tries to find his ex-girlfriend. He finds her,
Mm.
Tia Leone, and he goes there. It's so funny because uh, in the vision, like Tia Leone like worked for um like a nonprofit. She didn't care about money
Mm.
or any of that kind of stuff. And then he comes to her, and she really cares about money. She's like really high up. She's moving to Paris, and he's all depressed. He's moving to Paris. Man, like there's all these great scenes in this movie. Anyways, well, I think one of the best scenes is he goes to the airport, and she's trying to get on this plane, and he starts saying all the things that they had in this life. Like, we had kids, we did this, we had a dog, and she like looks at him like as if she like remembers or something. And the movie ends with them like having coffee, so you actually don't know what happens, but it's like it's such a nice movie for that. It's a great Christmas movie. Everybody should go watch it. Um, but I think the other funny thing, which is really interesting, so anyways, he's like in the new life, he's like a tire salesman. He like works at this. He's a tire salesman, and it's really funny because he's like trying so hard to like he has to fight with the investment banking finance thing and this new life, right? Like he's like,
Mm.
and it's really funny because the firm that he runs in his other life, they're hiring. And so he ends up going and getting an interview and like getting a job with them.
Hmm.
And it's a great scene though because he's like in there in this like really big apartment and it's really nice. And the girl, like his wife, Tia Leone comes in and she's like, "What is all this?" And he's like, "Well, this like I just got a job with this and I'm going to do
Mm.
arbitrage, blah 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 blah." And she's like, "Okay, what are you? What do you mean? Like we're going to move to New York City?" She's like, "I thought we hated New York City. I thought we wanted to get out of New York City." He's like, "Yeah, but like I gotta do this," and like he's like essentially being like, he wants both things.
Mm.
I want family, but I want my freaking finance job. And it's anyway, she gets pissed and she's like, "What the fuck? Like I don't want to take our kids out of school." I'm like, "I like living in New Jersey and I like our little house." And then she comes to him later that night. She's like, "If this is what you need to be happy, we'll do anything to help you be happy." So I think the point of this movie, one, it shows there's all these parallel things that are happening in hand, for one. But two, you know, I think it really shows what's important. And it shows what I think a lot like is lost in relationship. Like relationship is supposed to be like a team. You're supposed to
Mm.
love each other for who they are. You're supposed to unconditionally love that person. When Tia Lena comes to him and says, "We'll go," she's sacrificing to go to New York because she knows this is what's going to make him happy. And if he's happy, then she can also be happy. And I think that's kind of lost in this very individualistic world we live in. I'm not trying to sit here and say that women should just sacrifice for men also sacrifice for women too, right? Like in this movie, he there's a scene where he finds this like old airline ticket as a bookmark, and it's the airline ticket that he
Mm.
took to fly to London and she's like, and Celia was actually, "I didn't think you were going to come back." She's like, "I thought you were gone forever." And then the next day you show up and say, "No, I choose you." And that's when she says, "I'll go to New York," because she knows that he gave up a lot to come back. And she's like, "Well, no, we gotta do both things." And then he has to go back to his other life. I don't know. I just think of that scene where he's like, "We had kids" at the airport, and she was like, and you can see there's something in her that is like, "Oh." So I love
Mm.
that movie. I'm kind of a sucker for all this stuff. I didn't used to cry when I didn't, you know. Now I'm just thinking about the movie and I'm sitting here bawling my eyes out with everybody on this podcast. But I think it's something that is possible in any relationship I have with my wife. I'm really fortunate that you got to cultivate it, but it's kind of like what it's all about. It's not actually about all the accolades and the money and all that kind of stuff. It's more about finding someone that you can be in relation with, that your soul is also relationship with, and it's kind of the counterpart. And you guys find a way to slowly but surely meld into one. Such a wonderful.
Mm.
Anyways, I've talked for a while. You can go.
No, I so appreciate your sharing that. As you were sharing it, I was remembering, oh yes, I cried so much at this movie.
I
I
will.
bawled my eyes out at this movie.
When I started talking about it,
Mm.
we got a snowstorm,
Oh wow.
which I thought was quite fitting.
That is that's really special. The the relationship is really interesting because like the point that you bring up. Because if it's seen as sacrifice, I mean, if it's actually viewed as sacrifice, then that's usually what creates a lot of resentment and tension in a relationship. So the partnership has to come from a recognition that one, the two people coming together are as whole as possible in themselves, which is already a really difficult thing for any of us to be and to show up as in a without a partner, and then especially in relationship. And then there's a an ability to recognize that when something is the most beneficial for one person, it's necessarily the most beneficial for the other because there is no separation between us. So that, like, reframing it like that, I feel is really important, because when it's framed from this perspective of sacrifice, giving up things, uh at least for myself, when I was married, in any relationship I was in, anytime it was framed like that, I would feel very, um I don't know, it just wouldn't work. But anytime I would frame it as, well, we're doing this together for the benefit of us or for the benefit of what we intend to create together, anything like that, then it's, well, obvious. It's really obvious that this is the way to move forward. Um, I'm not sure why it's talked about so much in terms of sacrifice. It's almost like some sort of like martyrdom situation that people want to feel of, like, I've given up so much. But the truth is, if that's what you really desire, then you haven't given up anything, right? Like,
Yeah, well, I think what you're saying is it's like it comes back to, are you doing this from a team perspective, or are you doing this from your self perspective?
mhm,
And I think that the martyrdom thing for sure is a form of control.
mhm,
I think this is a way that people use this as a way to manipulate and control. Like, look, I'll be honest. Like when Katie and I moved to Portland, that was a me thing. That wasn't a Katie thing.
mhm,
Like, that wasn't a Katie thing at all. Katie went along with it. She was like, okay, like if you really want to go, we'll make it all, and then we just had one rule, which was if she can't figure out how to work down there, then we'll come back.
mhm,
That was the rule. We're not going to make the same mistake that other people we know make. And then she did a good college try. I'll tell you that I enjoyed living in Portland a heck of a lot more than she enjoyed living in Portland. There was no sun. She wasn't working. She just, yeah, like nothing that she kind of envisioned kind of came to fruition.
mhm,
Um, and yeah, like by the, January, February of 2023, she was like, hey, like I need to go back. And it's like, yeah, we'll go back. We're going to do this as a team. I'm not going to say like, oh, I'm really excited here. Like, no, we're a team. We have to do this together.
mhm.
But I agree with you. It's when you see people who are like, oh, well, I'll go to the like I got into Harvard, but I'll go to the University of Miami because you're going there, and then they're like, oh, well, I could have gone to Harvard. Fuck that.
Yeah.
You need to make the decisions that you think are right for you. You have to ask yourself, how important is this relationship in your life? There's a great scene in Landman where Billy Bob Thornton says to his daughter, his daughter's like, Daddy, I love whatever, right? She's like in love with this guy. And Billy Bob Thornton's like, this guy is a tool. Like, the guy who's acting the tool played a tool really well. Like, good for him. It's very hard to like to get people in a show to not like you. And this guy's very good because I'm sure he's probably a decent person outside of the show. It's kind of like that guy that plays Joffrey in Game of Thrones. I'm sure he's a nice guy, but God, Joffrey's a horrible character in Game of Thrones. But anyways, and so she's like, Daddy, I love him. He's like, okay. Like, do you feel like this is the person this is the last love of your life? She's like, what do you mean? He's like, that's how you know. Like, you want to be with this person forever, right? You don't want to love anybody ever again. This is the only person you want to love. She's like, yes. He's like, okay. Anyways, few scenes later, this guy like super is just disappointing to her. She comes back in and she's like crying to her dad, and she's just like, Daddy, he wasn't the last person I'm gonna love. And it's a sad scene, but it's a nice scene that um, you know, he gave his kid like a idea of what it's supposed to feel like. Like, is this, and I think it's actually not a bad way of looking at it, right? Like, you got to go into this relationship being like, this is it. This is the relationship I want for the rest of my life. Because there's so much more to a relationship than like sex and having uh, similar hobbies and all that kind of stuff. Like I had an old psychologist tell me this. She was like, the two things that you want for a successful relationship. She said, this is my view. And I think this is brilliant. She said the two things are, do you guys share the same values? Because I'm going to tell you right now, if you don't share the same values and you're parenting and you're like, well, it's going to be difficult. But then even on a bigger scale, she says, can you hold space for one another? Can, when that person is really upset, really sad, or whatever it is, can you hold space for them? Can you actually allow them to operate and feel the things that they need to feel without you trying to fix them or you trying to be like snap out of it or whatever it is? She's like, I don't care if you have all the same hobbies and all the same friends. If you don't share the same values and you can't hold space for one another, that relationship isn't going to last. I don't care that you go golfing every Saturday. Obviously, it's fair. So I think that's kind of what that family man shows. It's like he has everything, but he actually has nothing.
Mm.
And it's great because in that scene, when he comes to, and he's like, holy fuck, I'm back in life. No. He opens the door and there's this, like, the most beautiful woman you've ever seen in lingerie. She's like, Merry Christmas. He's like, Merry Christmas? Why are you here? She's like, well, I thought this is what you wanted. And he's like, like, I'm really sorry. Like, I gotta go. I gotta run. Like, I gotta go. Like, he's like figured out what actually
Mm.
matters. Like, all this other shit that he has doesn't matter. He drives a Ferrari. He lives in a beautiful house in New York City. He's like, I don't care about it. I want this. This is what I want. I'm totally fine being a tire salesman in New Jersey as long as I can have what I had in that freaking dream. So that's kind of why it's a little bit like the Christmas Carol. You know,
Mm.
it's like, stop being the tool, figure out what actually matters. This is what matters.
Mm. Hmm. That psychologist, right? Her framing is really interesting. I've never heard someone frame the being able to hold space for one another or like even point to that. Yeah, it's really insightful.
It's super insightful.
Hmm.
And like, look, you do the best you can, but you do the best you can. But um, I think it's very difficult to uh, like, look, if like the foundation, we talked about this before, the foundation for all relationships in my view is trust, honesty, respect. It's like you can't have trust, honesty, respect if you don't share like similar values. I'm not saying that you have to have like the same values in absolutely everything, but you know you got to have like your core values have got to be pretty similar, or at least you got to share a lot of the same core values. And because you can't effectively parent them, because that's kind of, you can't effectively have like a deeper relationship. You got to be able to talk about stuff, even as hard as it is. I
Hmm.
think this is also why, like, if you think about it, like when people go through IVF, it's like, my wife and I were talking about IVF. It's like she was like, if in IVF it either completely separates you or it brings you guys together in the strongest bond you can possibly have, because it is a grueling test. So yeah.
Hmm. There also feels like there's something important to say about the capacity for love for oneself and compassion for oneself as being an essential component, simply because the love and acceptance of oneself then naturally extends because of that non-duality principle to other people. And that makes it easier to hold space and not be affected by whatever somebody else is doing in the space. This, the it feels to me like so many of our relationships get formed because we're expecting someone else to meet our needs, right? To meet some desire or need or some, for me, it's envisioned as a hole almost that we have within ourselves. And so we're kind of looking, it's like we've got these holes everywhere and we're looking for who's going to be the one who comes and fits in, right? Like that Shel Silverstein missing piece thing, right? Like you're the thing that's going to make me whole. And that sets up a dynamic of of dependence that's really unhealthy, and of um, manipulation and control, because you don't want to lose that because you feel like you need it, right? So it's like you you've attached to somebody's attached to you, and you've attached to them like this, and you're holding on to each other, and you're afraid to let go, and that is a very unloving position to be in. uh, Whereas the more in touch with this deeper love that there is, and the more whole you are, there's less of a need for that, which then really allows for the space to flourish and be held, because then you're just let someone be, right? And that's again where it comes back to then not being a sacrifice, because there's no sacrifice in letting someone be. There's no need to like win the argument or get up on top of them or over them or whatever, control the situation. uh, that seems to dominate the narrative of almost everybody I talk to, who, like, when it's about relationship, is being the one who wins, being the one who's right, right? All of that is just toxic
Well,
in
I think,
any relationship.
yeah, for sure. Well, I also think too, like, if you're going to have a codependent relationship, there has to be manipulation and control.
Mm.
Like, I think it's kind of I think it's kind of has to be, because every both people are doing something to maintain that dependency on one another.
Hmm.
It's almost not like a relationship is a transaction. It's like, you do this for me, I do this for you,
Yeah.
conscious, unconscious. I don't
Yeah.
exactly know what that is, but then
Hmm.
when you don't get it, you have to exert your manipulation and control to get
Yeah.
it, and then it's this weird kind of parasite that just kind of grows in both of you that has to
Hmm.
keep going. I also think with what you were saying about loving yourself. Look, I'll tell you this: my relationship with Katie has gotten so much better the more I've done work on myself, and the more I've been able
Hmm.
to, uh, you know, fall back in love with myself. Not that I didn't love myself.
Yeah.
I got
Hmm.
photos of myself right here when I'm 4 years old, and I'm writing, and I'm so excited. And there's like
Mm.
photos of me jumping in the pool, and I'm pumped, and like, okay, look, I love myself then. I'll feel that way
Yeah.
again. Okay,
Yeah.
so I've been able to uh, kind of rekindle a lot of that, but then that in itself allows Katie to then love me more because I love
Yeah.
her. And then it also allows her to say, "Oh, it's actually safe for me to let him love me more because he
Yeah.
loves him." It's kind of this.
Yes.
It's kind of like
Yep.
this whole notion where it's like, if you want to change the world, change yourself. It's actually it's a true statement. Um, and I think that when you have those tenets of those relationships where you're falling more in love with yourself, and you can allow yourself to fall more in love with that person, you increase your capacity, all these kind of things. It just allows for a more harmonious relationship because,
Hmm.
look, like, you're not going to agree on everything. Like, my wife and I don't agree on names for our kid. But we found common ground on a few of them. But there are names that, like, I love that Katie's like, I don't know. And there's names that she would say, I'm like, no.
Like what?
Because you like think about calling your kid that, and you're like, no, can't live with it.
Example, please. There has to be an example.
Okay, so like the name that I really love is Killian. Okay, so
Okay.
it's like the guy it's the lead actor who plays Oppenheimer in the movie Oppenheimer.
Okay.
And my wife's like, there's no way that I'm gonna name my kid Killian. Because it's not like it's a 1700s thing where he's going to run into battle and they're like, go Killian, go kill him. And that's essentially what she's like. She's like, guaranteed his nickname's going to be Killer or Killy or something like that. And she's like, I don't want Kill anywhere near my kid.
Yeah, that's very fair.
That's
Yeah.
I spent a whole walk being like, this is the most boss name ever. Like, his name's Killian Gallagher.
I
That sounds like the most Irish rugby player. Like, he's going to
mean, that's
grow up
true.
like this. He's going to have red hair, even though I don't have red hair and Katie's got blonde hair. But somehow there's just going to be some like universal intervention that's going to have him have red hair, and he's going to be freaking jacked. He's going to look like Tormund from freaking Game of Thrones, and he's going to get onto the rugby pitch, and he's just going to freaking be the most dominant guy in the world. I don't know why I think that, but that's just what I see.
Okay, so maybe if he comes out with red hair, that's it. Yeah, that's the agreement. If he comes out with red hair, he's named Killian.
Exactly. So, we, but no, she, like, I'm not going to go and say the names that she said. I think that I
Yeah,
can use my name, but
yeah, yeah.
it's just more like she come up with names. I'm like, you know what? I was friends with a
Mm,
guy with that name, and I don't like that name.
mm,
Or
yeah,
it's like, oh, like my friend's kids are named that name, and it's like I don't.
yeah.
That's the only downside of being one of the last people in your friend group to have kids is that like they've all picked names. At least if you're the first person, you're like, yeah, I get first dibs on all these awesome names. I would say that I have a lot more affinity. I think both my wife have a lot more
Mm,
affinity to like the older style names, like the names
mm,
that have kind of stood the test of time. Um,
mm,
so say that. Uh,
yeah.
we also had like we had a woman. We have like a doula that we've hired. She's a wonderful woman. Her name is Heather, and she just said she's like, you want to make sure that the name kind of works in any situation. So
Mm,
if your kid is like working in a very like risk averse, like finance role, she can walk into a boardroom or he can walk into a boardroom and like the name comes off and no one says a word. They're like, yeah,
mm,
that makes sense. Uh, and but if your kid's also a hippie, it's okay too. Like it's not like there's no. It's just it's a ubiquitous universal name that it's going to work
mm.
in any situation. You don't want to have a name where it just kind of like pigeonholes you in a
Yeah,
different area.
yeah.
So,
That's fair.
and I'm not going to say any of the names on the air
I
because I
know.
guarantee one of these people will be named that and they'll comment being like, "Well, I am named that. You just offended me." It's like, hey, whatever. I'm not going to go there, but um, yeah, that's kind of what we're thinking. But yeah,
Yeah.
like I think that you're not, as I said, like in a relationship, you're not going to agree on everything. Like I'm sure
Hmm.
you and your ex-husband didn't agree on everything, and like I sure don't agree with Katie on everything, and she definitely doesn't. Like I don't even agree with me sometimes when I'm like, this is a great idea, and she's like, I think that's a terrible idea. You know, depends on
Hmm.
which person wants to be. Depends on if it's just depends. Sometimes if you're like,
Yeah.
oh, you just shoot first, ask questions later. You know that this is what I'm doing. It's like okay. But I also think,
There's, oh,
go
go
on.
ahead. I was just going to say, in the disagreements, there's so much there that I really love. So I actually really appreciate when I disagree with people because then there's something to learn or a new perspective to see or something. The the relationships I had where somebody was always agreeing with me, they lasted so short, a month maybe, because I would get like, what is this? Like have a have a perspective. And if we have the exact same perspective, well, then what are we doing? We're not helping each other grow in any way. So, yeah, I love those moments of disagreement because there's all these great opportunities for growth, provided you use the disagreement for growth and not to try to one up each other.
Well, I think that's like there's a reason why I think people say opposites attract.
Mm,
I've learned so much from Katie. I've become such a better person because of Katie.
mm,
Uh, like there's just so many things that she's brought. She's like rekindled my love of Christmas. I like, we didn't have it. We rarely ever had a tree growing up, and
mm.
we just go to Hawaii, which is awesome. It's great, but there's no magic at Christmas. Um, there's like something about being in a snowstorm and there being having like hot chocolate in the tree and a
Yeah.
fire and whatnot. I think that's kind of what Christmas is. And Katie like decorates the house and all this stuff, which is really nice. She's rekindled that. She's like rekindled my like creativity and
Mm.
curiosity um and she just thinks about the world differently than me, which is nice
Yeah.
because I then don't just um I have someone that I will at least challenge my point of view and make me kind of think, hey, is there a better way of doing this? But I also think the other great thing that Katie does is that Katie accepts me for me.
Yeah.
Katie doesn't want like, and that's a very difficult thing. I'm not the easiest person to be around. Um, just because I push, I'm like, I'm pushing. I kind of feel like you're the same way. It's like you're like, I'm going this way. You're either gonna
Yeah.
roll with me or we're not going.
Yep.
Um, and so no, like she accepts me for me, I accept her for her, and
Mm.
um, yeah. And there are things that I didn't know existed in her that I now know, like that she's kind of like Howard Hughes and be a germaphobe. I'm like, I didn't know you. Like, there's lots of things that were a surprise to her. She's like, oh, okay, you're gonna like do the spiritual revolution thing, and live in the everything awesome, and then have the dark night of the soul, and then always be working on something, and whatever. But yeah, that, and then my wife, yeah. So didn't know that was gonna happen, but
Mm.
okay, that's her deal.
Mhm.
I find that the less you try to control anybody. I think that, like, if you want to talk about parenting, I think we should talk about parenting here. This is a really
Mm.
good segue. Is when you try to control your kids, like, there is definitely a level of control that you need to have when you're a parent, when they're little. Like, for example, you're not just going to leave your kid next to a pond with water.
Right.
Have at her.
Good luck.
Like, good luck. You're not going to do that. You're not going to just, the kid's 4 years old. It's like, all right, bud, you got to figure out how to eat, and it's not my problem. I don't know what you're going to do. There's things like that, right? But I think as the kids get older, you have to grow. You have to slowly but surely take the train wheels off, and then not run behind them when they're riding their bike, and then essentially just you're like, hey, you can go do what you need to do. And I feel like there's all these things that exist in the world now. Like, there's an app called Life 365. I think we might have talked about Life 365 before, but there's this app where, like, you can have all your kids on it, and then you can just see where they are at any given point.
Oh.
In Landman, it's so great. In Landman, there's a Life 365 thing, and Allie Larder is the mom of the girl, and so she runs into Billy Bob Thornton's room, and she says, "Our daughter is dead," and she's like, "What do you mean?" "She hasn't moved in an hour, and she's in some random part of Midland. She's dead. She's been kidnapped." And he's like, "Honey, I bet she's fine." She's like, "Okay, so you're telling me that if I'm telling you that your child's dead, you're not going to do anything about it? Like, what kind of?" And she, like, goes into this huge tirade. And he's like, "Fine, send me a pin, and I'll go get her." So, anyways, he goes out there. She's just hooking up with a guy, and he gets out there, whatever, and they're driving back, and she's like, he, like, looks at her and says, "You do realize that your mother like spies her?" He's like, "Oh, I know. Oh, Daddy, I should have moved around a little bit," because she probably thought I hadn't moved in a while. But there's all these things that essentially allow you to kind of continue the control narrative as kids get older. But I don't know about you, but when you look at younger generations like Gen Z or younger millennials or any of these kind of people, right, they really lack this, like, confidence in themselves.
Well, yeah, because I mean, there's lots of reasons for that, but it definitely, there is a part of that that has to do with not being trusted, right? An inherent lack of trust in them. It's interesting to frame what you said as control, because I would frame it differently, in the sense, I was talking to somebody just last week about this, of the relationship with children, adults and children, in a sense being no different than the relationships that we were just talking about with two adults, in that it's a partnership. So if you have a 2 year old, a good partner doesn't let the 2 year old go into a body of water because they know they can't swim. That's just like not a good partnership. It's not a good team. You don't do that. So it's not about control. It's about, like, what is in service of our partnership. And so what's in service of a partnership for kids is, if I don't know how anything in the world works really, but I do know that when we come into this world, we're not really that adept at using our bodies, right? Like we don't really get how they how they work.
No, we're
And we're
not.
kind of,
We're not like a like. I think the most amazing thing you see like a giraffe get born, and then it's just like walking, and
right, exactly.
like it's not big enough to save itself from a lion, but it's got some coordination. Like
Right.
these kids come out, they're all like wrinkly and they're so useless,
Yeah.
and they're
Yeah.
quite useless for a long time.
For a really long time. Yeah. So, like, they're trying to figure out their bodies. So, what does a good partner do there? Well, help set boundaries and understand, help them understand how to use their body properly, help them understand the material world, because that's a really kind thing to do, right? It's rooted in curiosity, kindness, and love, not in control. And then, of course, as kids grow older, well, then they have better understanding of themselves and their bodies and how they move about the world. So then you would naturally just give them more space to explore and be able to work things out for themselves. And that's where the trust and the partnership feels like it really comes in. And when it's thought about in that way, then you really can see how much lighter parenting can be than we make it. Um, and that it does make a huge difference to the kids. So, as I mentioned a couple times, like we work with kids. The nonprofit that I work with works with kids, and we create spaces where the kids are really free. You know, we set a container, we set the boundary. Obviously,
Yeah,
if somebody's
like you're
doing
not gonna
something
like
that's
when the kid shows up and punches you in the stomach, you're like, this is
right,
acceptable. You're not gonna
right,
punch me in the stomach. Like that's cool that you like to do that.
right,
No.
yeah,
So we're not gonna do violence here, or like
right.
or the kid says, I'm gonna go out for a walk. You're like, no, you're gonna stay in the classroom and stay right here. And
Well, we talk about it though. I guess like if somebody came up and punched me, I would go, "Oh my gosh, what just happened? Why are we doing this?" Right? Like why? Or if someone wants to go for a walk, actually our first instinct is to say, "Well, how do we make that happen for you?" If we can, and if we can't, then to explain, "Well, this is why we can't do it." So there's never a as much as possible. This last year was a little bit challenging because there were so many kids in one space, but in general, it's a lot more of this fluid conversation and respect. And what was so amazing to hear from the kids at the end was the reflection back from them saying, we've never had an experience of actually just being trusted. We've never had an experience of being respected by an adult. And this was so meaningful to us because we didn't know that we were capable of the things that we now discovered we're capable of. Because somebody's always hovering over us, freaking out. Don't do this, don't do that, do it this way, da da da, right? It's like so stressful.
super stressful. And I think that people look, if you're tired and you're just like, can you just please? But I think you can also say as a parent, it's like, look, like I had a tough day. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Kids aren't
Yep.
stupid. It's like I've
Yep.
had a tough day. My day's been stressful. I would really appreciate it if you just put the clothes on and did what I asked you to do, please. Please, as best you possibly can.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but there's a couple things when I think about it. Um, one, I think they have too many activities. I think parents are doing what they think is right, but when your kid has like gymnastics 4 times a week and figure skating twice a week and is in chess club and has to do kumon and has to do homework and has to go to their grandma's house, it's just you're like, holy fuck! It's like you guys are as busy as a freaking CEO of Fortune 500 company. At what point do they get to just have some like an unconstrained playtime or creative
Yeah.
time? Then the parents are like, then the parents are saying to themselves when the kid comes, like, okay, well, what am I supposed to do? And the parents are like, well, you got to figure it out. It's like, well, no, the kid's like, well, no, you figured out what I'm supposed to do my whole life. So now I have to go and like be creative. Like, what are we doing here? For one, like,
Mm-hmm.
and me as a parent, like, I'm like, you can do one thing. You're not doing anything in the summer either. Like, you can go outside. You can go be creative outside and do things and
Mm-hmm.
whatnot. Like, I love what my neighbor does. My neighbor all four of our kids are outside playing, creating dance things, being creative.
Yeah.
Like, as I've talked about before, like that's how I created Liam's baseball. We played road hockey. We played so many different things. It's just for fun.
Yeah.
Um, Not everything needs to be structured. If
No.
anything, you need more unstructured playtime for one. But
It,
two, I think
can I add something there,
well, you
Liam?
go
Sorry, not to lose your train of thought, but just to add something in there that the opposite is also true when there's no structure and then kids are given devices because that also has it has a really detrimental effect on their creativity and their sense of self-worth. Um, it's it is hard to overstate the extent to which those devices affect our entire bodies, including our brains. It's it's a very real thing, and I've just noticed a lot, and I understand why
and what do you?
parents do
Yeah,
this,
and
but
I think it's one thing to like sit here and talk about it in general, but you're gonna turn into a European DJ pretty soon here. I really hope. Maybe we can do that in solidarity.
the crown on my head is very active, and so when this is over, it burns like
Oh, that's
so
great.
much that I feel like my head's on fire. So that's why I have to keep moving it.
Okay, so but I think it's helpful
Yeah.
is
It's
that
like this, right?
when you say things that you exactly.
Sorry, continue. Yes, but take
So
this
I think
seriously.
it's helpful when you say, well, what things have you seen? Because you work with kids, you see them.
Yeah.
You can kind of tell the kids that are addicted to their phone and
Yeah.
or their devices.
It's all of them. I mean, this is the reality, right? If you give a child a phone or a device, the propensity for addiction is almost immediate. And we see it. What's really the saddest thing to observe is not just the addiction, but the what happens to the being of a person, because we have these kids. So we've been working with kids in Michigan over the last 3 years, so we've gotten to see quite a few of them transition from elementary school into intermediate school and intermediate into middle school, and these are the ages where they start to give kids devices. So the school will give them laptops, Chromebooks, when they're in fourth grade, and then by fifth grade they have them all the time. And what you see is that kids in second, third grade, and early fourth grade before they have their Chromebooks are so imaginative, right? And all they want to do is take whatever's around them and create things with it. And then they get a Chromebook and all they want to do is stare at a screen. And it doesn't matter. The same exact situation that they were so excited about before is no longer as interesting as the Chromebook. Even with kids who had flip phones, there was a kid in over the summer who got a flip phone. So we got to see him before the flip phone and post flip phone, and pre flip phone drawings like you've never seen before. Post flip phone, just on the phone. And we had to remind him, like, hey, our class doesn't have devices. So um that's not something we're doing right now. Uh, and he would be like, "Oh, okay," and then would just keep going on the phone. It's heartbreaking to watch because you're watching almost the light dim in somebody as they give all of their energy to a screen. Yeah, I almost just don't have words for how sad it is. And after that particular thing in the summer, watching how, because I mean, we think about smartphones, we think about computers, but I didn't realize a flip phone, because it had games on it,
Oh,
could do
yeah,
the
yeah,
same
yeah. Oh,
thing,
the game,
right?
the game.
Yeah, it's the games. So the games and then the all the texting back and forth and just the entire his entire world became in the phone.
It's on T9. It's hard.
Yeah.
It requires a lot of effort.
Yeah.
The one thing I love about T9, it's like you're gonna get the one word answer, man. It's just like you say like PH or PONME, like phone me. Like at least then you're like, okay, call me or something like that. Or like, you know, like I don't want to type more than 12 characters. That takes like 2 minutes.
Forever, I know. You're pressing the button a million times. Okay. See.
There's no spell check or anything. It just it's just like no stuff. Anyway, but the games,
Yeah.
agreed.
Yeah. Uh, yeah, so I just share that to say this isn't a judgment about parents who use devices. It's just to say this is a reality of what they are.
Well,
And
I think
yeah,
that
go
like,
ahead.
you do the best you can, but like in my opinion, you don't like your kids. It's so funny because parents are like, well, we're giving you the phone for emergencies,
Right.
and my view is that okay, well, there are like a bunch of emergencies in which the phone isn't helpful. Like the kid gets kidnapped or something like that. The first thing the person's going to do is take away the phone.
Yeah.
Um, and if it's a smartphone, the first thing they're going to do is they're going to throw it out the window because they're like, well, there's location services and all that bullshit on it. One. Two, your kids can't go that far. Like, you need money and stuff to do stuff. Okay. Like, and most places don't take cash anymore. So, you can't just, and you're actually perpetuating the problem because you're like, oh, my kid needs to get home. Why? Your kid goes to school. Okay. You'll know if your kid isn't at school. I got this new phone number when I moved back. The amount of phone calls I get from like so and so isn't at this school today. I'm like, okay, well, this kid isn't at school today. There's only so many places the kid's going to be, and so I disagree with that point of view. I don't think a kid needs
Mm.
a phone. And then the second thing is I agree with you on the iPad and the like. I agree with you on it. I agree. Things like YouTube, like all of
Yeah.
these sites now, like TikTok and Instagram and YouTube and all these things, it's just one big dopamine thing.
Yeah.
Everything is short. It's the same thing with video games. Everything's different. Even TV shows, it's all different now. It's not like it was before. And you got to be really careful about what you expose them to. And then here's the other thing too. As a parent, you have to sacrifice. Like seriously, this is what's called a partnership. A partnership is where
Mm.
it's like, I want to do what's in the best interest of this thing, this being. So then, what do I have to give up to be in the
Yeah.
best interest?
Right.
Because
Well,
kids are
yeah.
stupid. If you come down and you say you can't watch TV, but I'm watching TV, the kid's gonna look at you like, well, why?
Yeah.
Because I'm bigger than you. That's not a good enough excuse.
No.
So
No, it's not.
you don't need to be, you have to, kids mimic. You see this all the time. They mimic. So if you
Hmm.
come home, the first thing you do is get on your phone. That's what it's going to want to do. If you're at dinner and you're on your phone, that's what it's going to want to do.
Yeah.
If the first thing you do after dinner is just to go sit in front of the TV and do nothing, like you
Yeah.
gotta, you gotta like. Now I get it. It's difficult, right? This is kind of where this world is hard, right? Where you're like, well, I'm a lawyer or I'm an engineer, and I want to come like, you know, you do need a break or whatever it is, but at the same time, uh, you have to you can't be surprised when your kids mimic what you do.
Yeah. Well, there's also an understanding of something's happened over the last like 60 years where we understand a break to be sitting in front of a screen and, just giving all of our energy to that. When I often will share with people, a much better form of a break is just sitting quietly. Just
Totally.
that's actually a break. The the other things are just feeding distractions because you don't want to be present in the moment, which is also, I get it. But it's just a different feeling. And I do want to say, so to the point about kids needing phones, like I'm not the person to make a judgment about this. We did have a student, this was interesting. So we had a student who was supposed to stay after school and decided he just didn't want to. And we had so many kids coming and going, we didn't call the parents because we just assumed he wasn't coming to class that day. He decided, so sweet, he decided he was just going to wander. So he's 12.
Good.
So he just leaves and he wanders and he goes over the bridge into another neighboring town. So he's gone for maybe 2.5 hours. So he walked pretty far. He's a big enough kid. So his mom comes to pick him up and we're like, oh, we thought he was with you. And she's like, well, where is where is he? And that's I can understand as a parent how that would be really frightening because the amount of space you can cover in 2.5 hours. And we were in a town where nothing was actually going to happen to him, but you could imagine that not being the case in another part of the country. And after that, she gave him a phone. And then after that, he developed a severe addiction to the phone and would scream anytime you tried to take it away. Uh, so that was fun. Um, but that's where there are things that used to exist in our culture, in our society, where there were payphones, there were other people you could talk to. There was just a different way of approaching the community where
Yeah,
that wasn't necessary. And actually, I said to her, like, we could have a policy where if he's not here, we just call you right away. Like that. We could have done that, and that would have mitigated against this. But the easiest solution always seems to be, well, then just go with the phone.
yeah.
And then I don't know if there's a phone that exists that just allows you to call out, but if that exists, it's probably the best solution because everything else
I think there
is,
are phones where you can get that stuff. You can have like you can
yeah.
get like there's. I remember my friend used to have this phone. It looked like a brick. Like you could like run over with a tank. It's like essentially a foreman's phone. I'm like that's the phone I'd get. I'd be like it
Yeah.
can't have a screen. It has to just have like all you can see is little digits. There's no games. There's no nothing.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you could also probably go on the internet and figure out a way to remove all that stuff and remove the ability to download and all this stuff. But like, look, I played video games when I was a kid.
Mm.
Like I did. Like my parents got me a Nintendo when I was like 4.
You're four?
Yeah, it was 4. It was great.
Oh
Played
my
that
gosh.
and
We never had games. We weren't allowed. My mom said
yeah, my
absolutely not.
parents is so. There's a great story. My mom tells me. She's like, I remember we bought. She's like, your dad and I bought Super Mario, and we bought it. We bought the Nintendo, and we stayed up till like because my parents were really young when they had me. Like my dad was 26 and my mom was 25, so like they were 30, 29, 30. So they're playing this video game till like 3 o'clock in the morning. While but then
That's
they were like
cute.
shocked at how good I got. They were like, "You're way better than us. Like we spent like we're adults. You're way better at this stuff than we were." But the difference was I still played sports. I still went outside. I still did
Mm.
things. I'm not saying that like your kids shouldn't play video games, and I also think too like um, you can't like you can't police it all. You know,
Hmm.
like I don't care what you do at another person's house. Like, okay,
Yeah.
they have video games. They can come home and they can say, "Well, why don't we have video games here?" It's like, hey, that's just the rule that your mom and I made, but
Yeah.
that's the rule that we have. It's
Yeah,
just the
that was
rule.
our house. Yep.
It's our house. It's our rules.
Hmm.
You know. My aunt. So my aunt is funny. So I've got an aunt. This woman's a wonderful woman. But like she had things that like I didn't particularly agree with, right? Like her kids could only watch G-rated movies until they were 18 years old. It's like that's not what I would be all about. But she told me she's like every Friday, because she had a pretty she ran a pretty strict ship. She's like on every Friday, like I wouldn't have any like rules. If the kids want to have pop, they could have
Hmm.
pop. We would every single day everybody has a different job, so like on
Hmm.
Mondays you'd have to set the table, you'd have to clear all these kind of things, but then on
Hmm.
Friday there'd be no chores, there'd be nothing for them to do,
Hmm.
and then we would all each Friday somebody else would pick a movie. So it's like one of the kids
Hmm.
pick a movie, I pick a movie, whatever,
Yeah.
right? And then we'd have to watch that movie, and there's all
Hmm.
these things where you're building kind of camaraderie and
Yeah.
building family unit. um, I think that's these are all great things. Um,
Hmm.
you know, I love talking to my aunt about parenting because I think that she did a really good job. She really cared. And like she did things that her kids didn't like, she for sure she did. But she's like, look, I'm doing it in the best interest. And she always said, she'd
Right.
be like, I would never fight my kids. My kids would be like, you ruined my life. She's like, I did. I did ruin your life. This is my
Hmm.
fault. I'm the one choosing to ruin your life. I'm really sorry about it. There's lots of parents who are like, I'm not ruining your life. Like,
Yeah.
I'm doing the right thing. No, no, no.
Hmm.
In that moment, you are ruining that kid's life. Like maybe that kid's
Hmm.
not going to be cool now. Maybe,
Yeah.
the kid was supposed to go to a sleepover and you're like, I don't know. Like, I kind of found out some information that you don't know about and I don't feel
Hmm.
comfortable. So I'm going to say, no, you can't go. Yeah, that might be to that child in that moment, that is life ruining because
Hmm.
everything is uh, in the eye of the beholder. It's their
Yeah.
perspective. You don't know their perspective.
Hmm.
You can't be like, well, there's kids in Africa dying. It's like they don't understand that. They
Yeah.
don't get that. They're like, no, you don't understand. I was going to go to this person's house. I'm at a new school. I was going to be
Yeah.
friends with them. They're the coolest people in the school, and I can't go, and I'm going to be a loner, and no one's going to like me. That, in their minds, is the end of the world,
Yeah.
and you have to meet them where they're at.
Hmm.
You can't be like, I disagree. It's like, fuck that. It goes back to what we talked about when we talked about holding space. It's like you have to hold
Yeah.
space for them. Yes, I'm
Yes.
ruining your life. Yes, this is my decision. No,
Yeah.
this isn't your decision. Yes, I understand that this sucks for you. If you
Hmm.
don't understand, I can imagine.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. And be really sincere about it. Yeah, when the kids would complain about, so in the classes prior to the really big one, we never had an issue with devices because the classes were so small. But when the class got really big, they would often sneak them out and they would just throw a fit. That's how you know it's a real problem. When
Totally.
you try to take something away from someone, I mean, we're not even taking it away, but when we're just gently suggesting that perhaps this isn't the thing we're doing right now, and the response is outsized, like tears and tantrums, you know something is wrong. Um, and they would say, like, you're being terrible. And I would say, yeah, I hear you. I really understand that. And look at how you're responding to this. This isn't healthy. What's that?
This is dysfunctional.
Yeah, right. Like, this is not healthy. And as someone who cares about you, I care about your health. Like, I just, um,
But it's also
I-
not just for them. It's for the whole group,
right.
right? It's one of these things where it's good to think about the minority, but you also have to think about the majority as well. If
Mhm.
you if you acquiesce to one person, that person over there is watching
Yeah,
and says, "Well, you let John have his phone, so I'll
right.
have my phone."
Exactly. Uh-huh. Yep.
You have to, like, kids push.
Of course.
They're like my
As they
dog.
should.
They're like my dog. My dog every day pushes boundaries.
I
My
mean, they
dog,
should, right?
yeah, like you should push the boundaries and figure out, okay,
Hmm.
this isn't brittle.
Yep.
This isn't malleable either. This is like a
Hmm.
hard. This is like me running into like a concrete wall that's like 6 feet thick. I doesn't matter how hard I run into it. I'm going to probably get hurt. But I think that you can't acquiesce. There's times where you're like, this is the rule.
Yeah.
And this is kind of where I think another big thing with parenting, it's also the same thing in relationships too. It's like set expectations.
Hmm.
Like this is what the expectation is. If you
Yeah.
don't meet the expectation, this is what happens.
Hmm.
You have to let everybody know what those expectations are, and they can't
Yeah.
move. It can't be like the
Hmm.
goalpost always moving.
Right. Yeah. Hmm.
Like I got a buddy of mine, and he's like, like it's hard. Like my one kid, like I'm having always to be on him. I'm like, you need to get off of him. He's like, what do you mean? I'm like, dude, kid isn't four. Okay, you got to figure out what the expectations are and then
Hmm.
hold them to them. And if he doesn't hold to them, then there's a certain set
Right.
of things that happen.
Yeah, there's consequences. That's it. That's life, right?
I
There's
fucking hate
things and there's consequences.
my dad used to. There's gonna be consequences for your actions. It's like, fuck does that mean? What are you gonna do? Like kick me out of the house and I have to live in a tent? Like there'll be consequences. It's like it sounds so like vindictive and like so like final. And then the best part is it's like, then you got to figure out if the person's a paper tiger, right? It's like, okay, I'm going
Mm.
to go do it. Then what are you going to do?
Yeah.
You
Well, yeah,
know?
and that's the appropriate thing. Like if you're a kid, that is the appropriate response to
Yeah.
just say, well, okay, well, how real is this?
Yeah.
And so if you set expectations and you set something that isn't consequences, that is less triggering than the word consequences, um, some sort of outcome as a result of not meeting those expectations. I mean, what's helpful is if they're natural, right? It's sort of like, well, this didn't happen. We were expecting this to happen. And so now this other thing can't happen as a result of that. Like that's just a really natural thing. And then holding it to that.
Yeah. Like
Um,
Derek Jeter talks about this.
mm,
Derek Jeter's dad was a university professor. I think his mom was also a university professor. He said, every year I had to sign a contract. Here were the
Yeah.
expectations.
Yeah.
And the consequence, if I didn't get these expectations, I can't play any sports, I can't do any of that kind of
Hmm.
stuff. And he's like, my parents meant it.
Yeah.
Like if my grades were slipping, it was like, all right, well, you're not going to baseball practice, you're not
Hmm.
doing any of that. You got to get your grades up, and you're gonna have to go tell your coach why.
Hmm.
Like you're gonna have to say to him, like that's why I love that movie Coach Carter, when like he makes them all sign a contract, like here's the grade point average you got to meet, da 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 da. And then
Mm.
all the kids aren't meeting the grade point average, and he just is like, yeah, we're just gonna we're gonna forfeit that game. We're not playing that game. Gym's
Hmm.
closed. And the parents are up in arms, like, who cares? He's like, I care. He's like, you guys signed a contract. This is it.
Yeah.
I don't care about some stupid state championship. I care that these kids maintain a specific grade point average because then they can go to university and they only need to get this on the SAT and da 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 da. But
Mm.
but and you agreed. You agreed. So what you said. You agreed. I think that that's the thing is, um, you know, there's two things I want to talk about. So one, I have a friend of mine, and he was telling me this
Mm.
story. He was like, it's like I walked in on my kids doing this, and I give myself, I gave him so much credit for like not intervening. He's like, he overheard his kid, and his kids playing a game where it's like, who can make the other one cry first? Okay.
Nice.
And so the dad, my buddy's just like, this is going to end so badly, but I'm just going to let it play out. So, anyways, sure enough, 15 minutes later, 20 minutes later, he hears this like howl, right?
Hmm.
Comes downstairs, his kid's throwing up on himself, he's crying profusely, all this stuff, and he's like, "What happened?" And the kid who's crying, he's like, "He bit me," and the kid had bit him on his like on his shoulder, like in his trap area.
Yeah.
And my buddy was like, I think he probably like hit a nerve or something like that
Mm.
caused some response.
Um,
And he's like, I'm just mad at both of them. I'm like, guys, look, this is a dumb game. Like, I'm like, and I'm not. You agreed to play. Who could make the person cry first? So he's within his rights to bite you.
yeah, it's perfect. Natural. See, that's a perfect natural consequence, right?
Yeah.
Like you do this, and then this happens, and now you know.
No,
Now you're not going to do that again.
they might play the game again, and they might say no biting.
Yeah. Well, they'll learn.
They'll figure it out.
Yeah.
Like, but there's other things, right? Where if you see your kid climbing up onto a stool and it's 2 years old, like, hey, you
Yeah.
know what? I got no problem you like running over there, and
Hmm.
maybe you don't. Maybe you're like, hey, you know what? I don't really want you climbing on the stool. You can go climb on other stuff, but you can't climb
Hmm.
on this or whatever it is, right? Because kids have to figure out the natural consequences, but
Hmm.
there's a way for you to let them learn that. But I don't know. I'm of the belief that the more you try to control the kid, the more you and not only that, the more you try to control the kid, the more it just destroys your relationship.
Yes.
It just
Yeah.
destroys your relationship with them because at some point you're just like, yo, can you just fuck off?
Yeah.
Like, I would rather fail doing something that you knew was going to fail anyways, but then at least I learned something
Yeah.
than you constantly telling me what I have to do when I can't do
Yeah.
it. So,
Yeah. Very true. The thing about the contract that I think is interesting, because the grade stuff is still very like conditioned, but the idea of holding yourself accountable is a really important
totally.
thing. To say, like, I set my own expectations for something, or I agree to these expectations and I'm going to hold myself accountable to them
Yeah.
is a really important lesson to learn.
Yeah. And look, I think you can sit here and rail against grades all you want, but unfortunately, this is kind of how our society is arranged. And whether you like it or not. And this is also coming from someone who had the highest GPA ever in their city or their town. And it's also coming from someone who probably got a 1600 on their SAT. So, it's really easy to be like, grades are a conditioned thing, but I had the best grades, best best possible grades known to man. So, and I got into Harvard, and I got into Brown. So it's like, it's one of those things where I agree it's a shitty condition, but at the same time, it's one of those things where there's no point in railing against it, because there are then consequences for railing against it. You get bad grades, it's a problem in the sense that the opportunities that are presented to you are different than if you had just gotten the good grades. I'm not saying that we could have a philosophical conversation about whether or not that's good or bad. But what I'm saying when it comes to expectations and grades, it's, hey, I agree they're stupid, but at the end of the day, this is kind of something that uh, everybody is kind of measured on when you're trying to go to post-secondary or whatever it is, right? Like, I agree with you, like in elementary school, it's like, hey, just like make sure you can write and you can read and you can do math and you're still creative. That's it. But when you're in high school, it's a different thing, right? I'll give you a really good example. I was talking to this coworker I have, and her daughter were like they're kind of going back and forth about grades. Like my coworker's expectation was like really high. It was ridiculous in my opinion. It was like upper band of the 90s, like essentially just below 100, which is that's a high bar. And her daughter was like, no, this is ridiculous. And so I remember I was talking to her about it. I'm like, well, like, what does your daughter want to take at university? She's like, oh, she's really interested in these things. I said, okay, well, then why don't you go figure out what you have to get into university? Like, what grade point average do you need to have? Because we don't have the SAT in Canada, which I think is a really good thing, because I think the SAT is, you're putting so much of somebody's life into one exam. And there are people that I know that are incredibly brilliant people that suck at taking standardized exams. And there's people that I know that are some of the most unimaginative, least creative people who destroy exams. Like, they're just so good at them. Yeah. So anyways, what was really interesting too, what I give my coworker a lot of credit for, she put the onus on her daughter. She's like, you go figure it out, and then you come back to me and we'll talk about it. And much to her daughter's surprise, the grades that she actually needed to do the things that she wanted to do were a lot higher than she thought. And so what her and her daughter decided was like, okay, well, let's just take the highest grade possible you need to get into whatever university you want to, and that'll be the expectation. So the expectations for Mona, like for my friend, came down substantially. But the expectations for her daughter actually came up, so they kind of met in the middle. But it was her daughter going to figure it out, which I thought was a really nice thing, because it empowered both people. And then it also kind of made it more of a conversation piece than like more of like you end up having an adult conversation than a parent-child.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. I guess the only thing I would add about the grades is just the stress that it puts on kids when something just isn't necessarily something that they're strong at, or they're not good at taking an exam, for example. Like, I think about so many of the kids I know, and even my sister, who really did have like traditionally good grades, but she really struggled in certain areas.
Sure.
And so my parents, they relaxed the expectation on her around that, because what is the point of expecting someone who really, this isn't like, if I think about like art class, the person who taught art when I was intermediate school and middle school, we used to hold up my paintings or whatever I drew, and would say, this is the worst thing I've ever seen. And she would give me D's and C's and like awful grades. Oh, she was not nice to me. She would say to me all the time, never be an artist. You're terrible. You have no idea what you're doing. So what good would it have done if my parents were screaming at me for not getting an A in art? Like, none.
No,
right? It's like,
that doesn't help. What I'm like, I would say that there are things in which, like, there are like courses, at least how I view it. There are courses that are, I would say, like, you should probably be somewhat decent at math, and you should probably know how to read and write, and you should, like, those are things that I would say are somewhat quantifiable in a way. I think, like, I think that if I'm not going to worry too much about subjective things like art music, or like, because what happens if your kid's not good at music? There are people who are amazing at it. There's people who just
Yeah.
are just not musically inclined at all. I'm not going to worry about you
Mhm.
getting an F in that. But if you're like 14 years old and you're getting 40% math, I'm like, hey, this is like, we need to work on this.
Yeah. Well, that's important as a signal to work on. But this, to me, just like music, math is a language. And so there's some people who really understand it and there's some who don't. Like my sister really never got the language of math. It was never explained to her in a way that she could understand it. So she worked so hard. I mean, she really, really worked hard. But she was never getting above a B. So that was what I meant. Like my parents were like, okay, well, you're obviously trying. You're obviously doing the best you can. So that is the expectation, right? The expectation is to do the best you can. That's why we set these bars around grades. We
Sure.
just are assuming the best that someone can do all the time is this like upper echelon space, but it just isn't for everybody. And that's okay,
That is
you
okay.
know?
I agree with you.
Yeah.
There still needs to be expectations, though. Because
Yeah.
here's the thing, right? Like, I think I've told you this. I think I've told this story about my dog, but it's like I used to, like, every day be like, "Why aren't you eating your food? You need to eat your food."
Mm.
We do this whole song and dance, and then I have to go hand feed him, which is, my dog's a German Shepherd. It's like I felt like I was like hand feeding the king. It's like, feed me. So I stopped. I stopped. I just give him his food. I say, and then if he doesn't eat it by a certain time, I just put it away.
Hmm.
Do that for a bit, and then I don't ever ask him about his food anymore. He eats it. We don't have this weird codependent relationship where he, like,
Yeah.
we don't do that anymore. And I think this is a little bit of a microcosm, right?
Mm.
It's like, hey, here's a boundary, here's a simple expectation.
Yeah.
It's like, you're going to eat your food.
Hmm.
Like, I can't give you any different food. I give you the best food known to man. Like, outside of me cooking you steak, which I'm not going to do, I give you the best food that a dog can eat. And you know, if you were in the wild, you have to go forage for your food. So I'm giving it to you in a nice, clean bowl, so like you can figure it out. But I agree with you. I think you got to figure out what the expectation, like, what is a fair expectation, and
Yeah.
then um, and I think that the expectation should just, like, especially when they're like little, like when they're in grade school or they're in junior high, like, they have to grow, they have to move on. They
Hmm.
can't, like, in grade school, it's like, as I said, right? There's a couple subjects that really matter, um, but I think it's more like, are you doing your homework?
Yeah.
You
Hmm.
know, are you learning? Are you getting better throughout the year? Like, things like that, right?
Hmm.
But then as you get older, it's like, hey, here's how you, because you got to explain this to kids. It's like, this is how it works. Like, this is what you have to, this is what happens after grade 12. This is kind of, you got to kind of prepare them. It's on you. You're an adult. You already kind of done this stuff. You can't just
Hmm.
expect your kid to figure it out. It's unfair to them. But I really do believe that kids want boundaries. Kids don't want it to be unconstrained. uh, Kids want there to be known things, um, and there needs to be enough space in between those barriers that allows them to kind of operate freely and creatively in a good space. They don't feel super constrained, like they're in a straitjacket. Um, but you also need to, you know, I'm not here to be friends with my kid. I'm here to be
Hmm.
a parent. You know, like,
Yeah.
I'm here to, you know, if you break a rule, and it's on me to make sure the rules aren't stupid,
Yeah.
aren't like whatever. But hey, I'm here to keep the boundaries.
Hmm.
And I'm,
Yeah.
I can say once, it's like, hey, like, I wouldn't do that if I were you, whatever. And you're like, okay. And then don't get mad when they do it. It's like, hey, I told you, can't do that.
Hmm.
Move forward. But yeah,
Hmm.
I think that that's probably like a.
Yeah.
You want anything to add?
No. That was a great conversation.
All right, that was
Thanks.
awesome.
Yeah.
All right, everybody. Well, we really appreciate you taking the time. Um, I will hopefully the next episode, the other episode, my kid will have a guest spot on it, and we look forward to talking to you guys in a little bit. So thank you guys so much.
Thank you.